Hi, good morning and welcome to the second of our How to Webinar series designed to provide you with practical advice and tips that you can put into action into your own business. Throughout the series, we'll be covering a range of great topics from how to avoid common mistakes new brands make on Amazon to how to grow your business with cross-border trade. A full list of the upcoming webinars will be made available at the end of the session. By way of introduction, I'm Pradeep Kagram, Engagement Manager here at GS1 UK, and today I'm joined by our fantastic guest speaker, founder and owner of Activ8, one of the leading Amazon and marketplace consultancies in the UK, Stu Conroy. The session is designed to provide practical advice and tips to help sustain and grow your business. To do this, Stu will explore case study examples and share advice on how to centralize your data by establishing systems for barcodes, product SKUs, and product design to help scale your business, how to automate your processes using the latest software solutions that fit your business needs. And thirdly, the importance of continuously analyzing customer data to learn about the effectiveness of existing processes and taking steps to optimize them. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The more formal aspect of this webinar will last for around 30 minutes, followed by a dedicated Q&A session. We welcome interaction during the session, so if you have a question, please use the chat function and we will share your questions with Stu. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website within the next few days. Please also be aware that your microphones will be muted throughout the webinar to avoid background noise. That's enough from me, and over to Stu.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Pradeep, for the introduction. So, welcome, everybody. Obviously, online logistics is a huge subject. So, first of all, if I establish who we are, Activ8, we've been a team for 20 years. We built our first website 20 years ago. And we've run shops, we've sold into retail, we've been on Amazon, eBay websites, and sold into UK, USA, and across the board. So, what we're seeing particularly at this time is everybody moving to online. And what we do as a service provider is build strategies and help brands navigate the many channels that are available to them to either sell or market on. We've been in your shoes. So we've sold over 10 million products ourselves through Amazon and continue to do so today. We still have manufacturing. So one thing that's been constant over that time is change. And what we focus on is building agile businesses and helping brands get as agile as possible and navigate the many new infrastructures or solutions that arise. So we're going to talk about three main topics today. So the first one I thought was important. So my understanding is that there's some scaling brands and some new entrant market. And when we talk about centralized, it comes back to us saying about, there's always new systems coming on board. And one of the challenges that I see for many clients is that they don't have access to a centralized data point so that they can quickly switch or change their solutions. So as all these new tech apps arise, you need to be agile enough. And sometimes, you'll choose solutions because they're right for you at the time. So there may be an enthusiasm to use Wix and Xero, and they may work for you when you're a smaller company. They're cost effective and, they're right for you at that point. But in order to scale, they don't always offer the opportunity to get your data out of them easily. So one of the key elements, I know it's not specifically about logistics, but it's about centralizing all your data. But the point is you can only, as new solutions come, you've always got to be talking from one system to the next. So I'm a big fan of custom or purpose-built solutions like Shopify and BigCommerce because they allow you to link to a whole series of new systems. And it's not just thinking about the system you put in, it's what it speaks to. So by having that centralized data, you can then scale as you change your business, and hopefully you're all growing your business and exploring new channels or new territories. And it's important that you're able to do that very quickly, because that's where the cost can go up to the business, or you can spend, I've got an example here where a client approached us last year. They've gone from 1 million to 12 million a year, which is fantastic. But it also then meant that they had to change their systems, because suddenly the systems they'd used weren't relevant to them. And outside of logistics, it's a bigger subject as well, but like the tax implications of understanding distance selling taxation and stuff like that as you scale across, potentially Europe or further afield. And then you need to upgrade your systems. And if you're also going into, going from an online market to realizing that you want to go into retail, maybe not suitable at this time, but strategic retail will still be very important to brands to be seen, particularly as online costs go up of advertising. So with this client, because they hadn't linked all of their data, it became a very time-consuming project to link all of the barcodes to all of their SKUs, to all of their metrics, all of their kind of specification data of their products, so their weights and measurements and those sort of pieces of information. And that's why a big part for me and what we work on clients from day one on is making sure that all of their data is aligned and centralized. As an example here, it was impossible for us to actually put all of the content on there. So this spreadsheet actually runs for about 80 or more columns. But we have a backup CSV. As I say, Excel's not changed in all the time that Amazon's appeared and eBay's appeared and Facebook and Instagram. And again, it's important that if we're looking at the next 3 to 5 years, we've got the likes of Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, that are all going to start being commercial transaction platforms. So, on Instagram, you're going to be able to, customers going to be able to buy the product, not necessarily having to jump over to a Shopify website or a separate website. So again, it's important to know what data you have there so that you can easily identify, the opportunities on those platforms, but then pulling that into a central system as quickly as possible. So developers of software are going to have to adapt to these new channels and understand what they, how they interact with them. And the more centralized your data, the easier it's going to be able to navigate those changes and take advantage of new platforms as they arise. Just one, logistics can seem like it's, a secondary thing to sales and marketing. But to give you an example, one of our clients started selling into Korea, and before Christmas, we were able to save them £600 on their weekly ship of postal deliveries into Korea. So based on their forecasts pre-coronavirus, that was equating to about a £30,000 saving, which to me is an employee or a load of marketing money that you've got to then grow your business. So it's important. It's not as sexy as all these videos telling you can 10x your business and be an instant millionaire in front of a Ferrari, if you've seen those pop up on Facebook and Instagram. But the cost savings you can make in logistics are huge, and will allow you to spend that money on getting awareness to your products, whether that's on Amazon or on websites. So the other part of or a key point is automation, and I think it's important to understand, as I said earlier, not just what system you start with, but what you move on to. If you're going to scale, I think as founders, I never did it, but I learned over the years, you have to plan to succeed. So it's not so much what you're doing today and is the system right for you today. Is it right for the next 3 to 5 years? And it's difficult for any of us to know what technology will be out in 3 to 5 years' time. So we have to, again, it's blending this centralization of data so you can move your operations very quickly if you need to, or if you become aware of a new solution that's more suitable to your business. You want to be able to move quickly. The second part is that as you move to those systems, is making sure that they're right for you and allow you to scale, and they feed into your existing systems. So the whole goal is always to reduce those manual processes, which may sound quite simple, but it's the impact that has. So 12 years ago, we had a warehouse management system company approach us, a company called Peoplevox. At the time, I think we had about 18 people picking and packing and an overworked team of 4 customer service people. This, technology's moved on a hell of a lot in the last 12 years. But what we had at that point was, lots of orders coming in, picking them, getting them out, but making too many mistakes, which meant we needed, it's all self-fulfilling, so we needed more customer service people. And when we put the Peoplevox system in, we reduced our headcount in the warehouse by half and reduced our customer service headcount by half. So again, huge savings, which it looked like a sizable investment in the system at that time, but the savings were, phenomenal compared to the investment that we'd made. And, just using the systems that are available, they may seem like they're expensive, but, once you factor in not putting them in and the extra resource you need, plus, customer dissatisfaction that you're not getting the picks right. We have 0 failure rate now in our picks because it's all fully automated, where, when we scaled, the systems weren't there, and we spent more time firefighting in our business than actually pushing the business forward. So finding the right provider for that. We put an example here of Parcel Hub. So I never knew about Parcel Hub until probably 3-4 years ago, and we had separate accounts for a number of different providers. So from Royal Mail to DHL, UPS, all of these types of providers. Parcel Hub, this isn't an advert for them, it's a company. There are other solutions, but to me, they're just a fantastic organization, and it allows us to very quickly move from Royal Mail to My Hermes to DPD, any of these couriers. I think they worked with about 12 couriers. And particularly when we've seen, this time, it's interesting to me looking at some of the data, Royal Mail, if you look at that as an organization, all self-employed, they do a fantastic job, but they've got high sickness rates at the moment and people taking the time off. Whereas My Hermes is a owner, they're all self-employed. So My Hermes does get a bad press at times, but I'd say for us, they've been phenomenal during this period. And again, I think it's understanding the structures behind some of these companies. Nobody could predict a corona or a pandemic, but being able to easily switch from one solution to another. Over the years, we've seen snowfall, postal strikes, all sorts of different things impact delivery programs. And it may seem like, well, I don't need it. I'm fine. I'm with Royal Mail. I'm with DPD. I don't need any backup. But we're always trying to be risk averse and make sure that if something doesn't go to plan, that we're able to switch very easily. So these are very cost-effective solutions, and you can still have your own accounts with the providers such as DPD and use the Parcel Hub software, but it links into a whole range of warehouse management systems and websites to make that whole process easy. So, as I said, nobody can predict a pandemic. Part of what we do is because we've been through warehouse fires, Icelandic ash clouds, Amazon suspensions, you name it, we've probably been through it over the last 20 years. And, what we try and pass on is our hindsight, so that you don't have to go through the same pain points. And these systems or solutions may seem, well, it's not right for us, but a common thing we hear from clients, particularly startup, is that, well, we're not at that stage yet. And I get that, but I would go and visit some of these locations where the systems are in, so what's possible if you need, if you get that growth and you need to go and use one of these systems. So typically, start up from home, and you want to get out of that mentality as quickly as possible of thinking who else can provide either the software or, companies such as ourselves provide multi-channel fulfillment solutions that are cost effective because we get volume discounts. We'll save you money. So, it's not as expensive as you think, and it's always worth investigating, even if you do find it too expensive, to do that research up front. So always be ahead of the curve. Just try and move this slide. So the third thing I wanted to talk about this morning was optimise. And when we're looking at logistics, when we're looking at modern business, there's never been as much data available to us ever, and in a timely fashion. So within it used to take me 45 days to get all of the data back from all of the different countries and different platforms that we were selling on. And now we can do that within half an hour of transaction, and that makes it actionable data. You might not be a fan of, I'm not an analyst, but thankfully, all these smart data science people have put all these systems together that make it very easy for us founders to just log in, see that our key performance indicators are on track, and then take action if, do more of what's working well and do less of the stuff that's causing issues. And when we look at logistics, it is just constantly learning from the data that's coming back to you. And it might not be things that are on your radar, but we did lots of audits for clients where we looked at what was causing the customer service in the logistics area. And there's a term called WISMO, where is my order, which is the most common reason that customers will get in touch with you and want to know, where's my order. So again, that automation, if it's looking at where that can be prevented from becoming a customer service inquiry. So are your front end communications as efficient as possible? Are you sending tracking data? Is there a problem? If we've seen in different sectors in recent weeks where particular providers are not performing at their usual levels. So you want to be able to be very fast to understand why that is and take necessary action. Does it mean you need more customer service people? Does it mean that you have to choose another provider? So having as much early access to all of that data as possible is crucial, I think, for success of brands in this next period of growth. And that, again, following on from that, it is that, reduction of manual intervention. So when you're getting that information, it might be where's my order, but it might also be, does this item have a battery included? And that's data that you can continually put in your front end descriptions so that you're making it very clear to the customer all the time. We want to reduce the amount of interactions that we're having with the customers in terms of the unimportant, not so much unimportant, but just that we want to be telling them all the good stuff about us and about our new products and our new price offerings or our new discounts, rather than spending all of our time saying, well, we don't know where your order is, we don't know if it's in stock. And this is the importance of all of these elements, to make sure that they're all working together and just focused on reducing the amount of manual intervention that you have to involve yourself with. There's for many of you that might be on Amazon at the moment, you'll have seen that these essential categories classifications that Amazon brought in meant that many people moved from, they only knew FBA with Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon. So that's just into an Amazon warehouse and getting Amazon to fulfill this. And now they're, not able to put the products in. So they're saying, well, okay, we've got to fulfill it ourselves or find a 3PL to do it. And I think it's important to understand that piece around 3PL. So even with clients that have been used to retail distribution models, when they move to this more automated self-fulfillment in e-commerce, they tend to use the same systems. So I remember horror stories from our own past where, we printed a sheet of A4 per order. So I'd come into like 20,000 pieces of paper, which is just not manageable. And solution providers like Linworks or Volo, Orderwise, we're a Linworks partner, but there are, again, other solutions. But Linworks can just automate all of those processes and reduce the processing time, so you're not waiting for all those pieces of paper to print off. Get barcoded solutions so that you can actually be more efficient in your warehouse pick and pack, and get the order out quicker, with less chances for any failures in the system. And before I finish, I've kind of flown through that this morning, but hopefully it was useful. The key thing for me is with every client that we work with, they all tend to have different systems and different solutions, and that can be from the supply chain into their warehousing or to wherever they've located their stock, and how they manage that. But when I think back to, I've been doing it 20 years, but I think back to my time, the bit I feel like I always should have done, and what I advise my clients is to come in or go to a company near you and go and see what they're doing. So it's very difficult at times to do it on a webinar or a slide sheet explaining what multi-channel logistics is. And it's, most people I know are very open to sharing their knowledge, and you can get in there and see what it actually means to automate your systems, what centralized data looks like. And as I said at the beginning, you might go on Wix and Xero to start with, but what does your strategy look like as you grow? If it's to get into wholesale, then you might need a more sophisticated accounting system, and at some point you're going to have to move. So it's preparing as early as possible in your journey for those migrations to systems that, again, all the time reducing your headcount as much as, or minimizing your headcount as much as possible. So I think that's the main points I wanted to get across today, and happy to take questions from here.
Okay, thank you very much, Stu. It's really informative, so really appreciate that. We've got 3 questions at the moment, so if anybody's got any more questions, can you please let them have us, and we'll get Stu to answer them. So the first one is, when would you say is the right point that a small business should bring in a management service?
We're a managed service provider, so I'd say day one. But I think from day one you should investigate it, and don't be scared to reach out to companies and ask the question of what's possible. And I think people are sometimes surprised. My team answer inquiries from customers, and they'll say, "Oh, well, your shipping rate's the same as ours." And it's, for a small business, you've got to think about where you spend your time. So you might be able to get the same rate. You might be able to negotiate locally with a courier provider and get that same rate. But what people don't factor in, most common, is their time and the overheads that are associated with that. So, you've got to take on warehousing. You've got HR costs. So are you actually saving money? And then, what I'm passionate about more than anything is getting founders and key people in companies doing the work they started. They created products, or they love doing sales, and they end up facing back into their business. So the tech and the solutions and the transparency that goes with those systems these days is phenomenal. So I would say go day one, unless your business model says, right, part of what we're building is we want our own warehouses and we want a big team spread across the world. I think the trend is more to that agile workforce, and managed service providers. I got offered managed service providers probably about 12 years ago, but I just didn't feel the systems or technology was there for me to move my system, and our aspirations were to have our own setup. But in hindsight, the tech that's available now is there to move your operations very efficiently and focus on the high value work in the business, not necessarily answering questions about where is my order.
Yeah, great answer. And I think you're right about the automation piece and all of that, and going to see other businesses doing this. Small companies will allow you to do that. But even if you don't, once the pandemic is finished, even if you went to an Amazon warehouse and looked at how they're fulfilling all of this, you will see the automation coming in a big way. So
exactly. Well, I went to the Amazon
Sorry,
buddy. I went to the Amazon warehouse I went to the Amazon warehouse 12 years ago, and you could see they don't show you everything, but they showed you enough so you could fill your head with ideas of what's possible or how you want to use it. And again, there'll be a lot of sellers who are only used to Amazon FBA, and there are opportunities to go. Like you say, it's coronavirus, so there's self-isolation restrictions, but as these companies open up, it's worth going and just getting a first-hand view of what it looks like for an order to come in from a website, go through a system, be barcode picked, packed out, zero failure rate. And also, coming back to the first point I made about centralizing the data, we took a client last year who had a WordPress site, and they said, can you just transition our site to another platform? We've only got 10 products. So seemed like an easy task, but when we logged in, their 10 products was actually 10 categories, and it was 1,500 products. There was no SKUs, there was no barcodes, there was no, so again, people don't know what they don't know, and they think it's easy to migrate. So it's just important to understand all of those things. And even in Amazon itself, do people understand FN SKUs and what that means for FBA? And as much as you can link all of that data centrally and backed up, then you can move to any system, or you can make sure that your data is consistent across the platforms as you scale across more platforms and more territories.
Great, thanks a lot, Stu. The question from one of the attendees here is, Stu, can you suggest any tips of ensuring that couriers take responsibility for their mistakes? I've had expensive goods damaged by TNT, UPS, DPD, but they simply don't care when things go wrong.
Yeah, it's you've got to learn to dance with the devil at times. It's one of those that if you go to the courier companies and say, we've got a client that's complaining of a 1% failure rate, if they're sending thousands of parcels out, they'll say that's acceptable. Now we're in that challenging period where there's a challenge when will the customer pay for the extra insurance? A lot of these systems over the last 20 years, it's grown as like free shipping. So customer expectation is free shipping. And when you say, it's £8, but it's insured, will people, this is the challenge. Everybody's got to remain competitive at the same time as offering the best service. And sometimes the customer doesn't want to pay that. So is there anything you can do? Again, I think over the last 20 years, I've had problems with every courier, and you realize that if you go from one to the next, it just happens. There are some couriers that are better than others. I mean, the ones listed there, I would say, are more competent couriers in my head. But again, it can be, a bad area. It can be a bad driver, and having that data to hand to raise it is essential. But then, will they take action? I think if they find it in their acceptance of tolerance for lost items, then they tend not to be as forthcoming in helping as you may hope. And even Royal Mail, I don't know. We've seen so many packages. Italian mail, for example. I'm sure there's an Italian postman who's built a house out of our phone cases over the years, just because how many we were losing in the post over there. But again, that's why we'd only use certain providers in Italy to make sure that the products get there. And you've just got to factor it into your margins that there will be those items that go missing, those items that are damaged, and can your business remain competitive and still have insurance added onto that delivery charge? But I think it will change over time, but it's something they don't make easy to even claim if something does go wrong. So it's just something that you do your best to complain and work with the right authorities or right people within the organisations. But it's thankfully I'd say it's a small number, but it can get frustrating. And if it's significant, then the courier companies will take action.
Okay, great. I've got another question here on what is the most common fulfillment mistake you see e-commerce sellers make?
I guess it depends where they are in their journey. So, you know, it comes back to planning to succeed, and I made this mistake myself. So it was like suddenly we absolutely accelerated, and we didn't have the systems in place. So I'm kind of speaking from a kind of negative experience of it, but you know, we had to act and get the systems in place. I think the things that maybe surprised me over time is just what, you know, I alluded to it earlier. It's like what people see as the cost of logistics, and they would tend to just look at it as the rate that they're getting from a courier rather than the costs behind that of labour. You know, they'll just look at it as a flat rate of a £5 courier charge rather than the labour cost, the warehousing cost, all of these sort of things. There's a few different ones as well, like, you know, time of collection. Again, if you're in an area where you've got early pickups and things like this, it can affect, you know, significantly affect your sales if you're able to ship until, you know, take orders until 6-7 o'clock at night, and that will depend on the courier runs or that sort of thing. So, you know, there's many factors, but just being prepared. And also, you know, it's something that you've got to be learning the whole time. We do a lot of projects of setting up brands in the US from a risk managed perspective. So we will ship orders from the UK next day into the US, and it's actually cost effective. And what I didn't realize until last year was that we were actually getting better rates to California than our fulfillment partners in just outside of New York could get from New York to California. So you got to continually be looking at what's possible and not going in there with preset ideas of what you think fulfillment is or logistics is. You know, speak to people who provide solutions, but speak to their customers, because they're keen to show you how well their system's looking. And if you use that to your advantage, you can go and get some valuable insights from customers who are using these systems or have things that you haven't considered before, and it'll allow you to plan your route a little bit better.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions from Jacqueline here. Is there a simple way to assign systems for barcodes and product SKUs that you can share with the audience? That's one, and then I'll ask you the second one after.
So we have an automated solution that allocates as we launch a new product, takes the GS1 codes. On that side, we still use a company called Volo. So there are solutions out there that will automatically allocate it. But it's also being mindful. Oh, so I've got somebody else on.
Who is this?
So they don't want to be on it?
No, they don't want to be reminded about the fact. They don't like having
you there, Freddie?
all the time.
Yeah, I'm still here. Just bear with us for a second, yeah?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I think that's clear now.
Yeah, so it's one of those that, depending on how, is it worth using that software? It depends on how many products you're launching each year. And also I've got a team in China that can add, a manufacturing source who do that for us very cost effectively. But yeah, we use Volo, but there's other solutions out there. So it's more, I'm sure a quick Google search would find companies that do that, but it depends on the size of, how many new barcodes you need. And over the last 20 years, we've seen it where, people aren't actually building their own brand. So, and if I go on the forums, it's always full of questions of where do I get my barcodes from? Now, whether it's just good fortune, we came to GS1 probably about 15 years ago and, came to the experts first of all. But, lots of people are, unfortunately, there's people selling barcodes and those sort of things, that get shut down on Amazon. So obviously we're on a GS1, so I'm going to say GS1, but we've had a great relationship with GS1 for pretty much 15 years, I think it is. And that's the main thing, is getting the right barcodes.
Thank you for that plug. Second question is, I created our own product SKUs for my website and now Amazon, but I'm not 100% sure I'm doing this correctly, so it all falls into place with other systems. Can you answer that one?
Well, product SKUs are going to be your own identifiers, and so it's not. It's the best advice I can give that area is just find a practical numbering solution, so that it's usually alphanumeric. It can mean something related to that product, but it's not going to. It's more your own identifier for the product. As you launch on Amazon, they'll allocate. Depending on how you set up, whether it's like an ASIN or an FN SKU, to your products, which is outside of your control. But as I said earlier, it's just important to keep track of that, because some listings can get merged. It's all of this information that's good to have centralized and backed up on a spreadsheet, so that you can always see what's happening, or if something's gone amiss. But yeah, SKUs, it's more making sure that they link from, if you automate correctly into your accounting systems, into your house systems, into the different platforms, so you've got a kind of holistic view of what's happening to your product across those systems. But yeah, I think there's no wrong way of doing SKUs in terms of it being your own identifier, but from experience, it's always good to have something that makes sense to you and can scale. And we did this badly, I think, about 18, 19 years ago, and you just went numeric, and then of course your numbers just get bigger, and they don't relate to anything. So we changed all our SKU system about 15, 16 years ago to be alphanumeric, so it meant something to us, so we knew what brand it was or what type of product it was. And I don't think there's a restriction on how long they can be, but ours are like 9 to 10 in length.
Okay. The next one is, I think I can answer this one. So the question is, are selling sites like Amazon, eBay checking EAN numbers with GS1 to verify authenticity? So the answer to that is Amazon certainly do. We supply Amazon with a daily file, and Amazon will cross-reference the barcode to ensure that the company that's listing that product, it has a license with GS1 and are the company selling the product. So yes, John, that's the answer to that one. Okay.
I think there was a discussion yesterday, Pradeep, in terms of what happens if somebody steals a barcode. Like, I think what we've seen over the years is that some people are taking barcodes off of other products that weren't necessarily on Amazon, and then the barcode owner was surprised to see their product already on there and assigned to a different product, which unfortunately there's always people that will look to shortcut the systems or not do it properly. And that's where it's important to be registered correctly with GS1, in my opinion, and make sure that Amazon will take action in that instance if they can see that it's there is a process, and it's not always easy, but there is a process that you can go through to actually have those listings removed. And if somebody's taking those barcodes persistently, then they'll just get their account shut down. So it's not a long-term tactic for them to do, and it's usually done by people just starting out and saying, well, this saves me a few quid on just getting a barcode. But the fact that they can verify it against GS1 is the important piece.
A quick question from John. We're going to be out of time shortly, but how can we get UPS and DHL to ship electronic goods from China with built-in lithium batteries? UPS say there should be a problem with China. It says no. Sorry, built-in UPS China is saying no. So do you have a solution for that, Stu?
I mean, lithium batteries is something that got restricted by a lot of carriers. So yeah, I can't speak for any courier company into their policy, but there are solutions. So you know, there's a fantastic service of using the train from China, which a lot of companies are now using, and particularly with the rising costs of air freight at this point, or courier charges. So there's other solution providers that may make it easier and cheaper in many ways. It just takes a little bit longer, but as long as your stock forecasting is right, you'll be able to get that stock through those solutions more than flying through the air. So there are still people getting products in with batteries, but it's on a courier by courier basis. And I think, yeah, there's other ways of doing it, such as the train solution, which is growing in popularity.
Okay, the issue was UK was saying it was fine, but China was saying no. But I think you've answered the question there. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for sharing your questions with us, and a big thank you to Stu for a great session as well. I hope you've taken away some great tips that you can implement in your own business. If you want to hear more from Stu, you can find him on the usual social media channels. Links are available on our website. We will also share the links in the follow-up email alongside a recording of this webinar. Finally, if you enjoyed this webinar, why don't you join us on another one of our upcoming session, the titles of which are on the screen, and we'll also include a link to the webinars in the follow-up email. All that is left for us to say is let us know your feedback on this session, as we want to make these as valuable as possible for you. What results you get after using some of the tips shared today. And if you've got any queries for us here at GS1, please get in touch. Engagement managers are here as usual, as our lovely member support team. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Stu, once again, and have a good day, and see you next week.
Thanks, Paddy.
Thanks.
Bye.